Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast, a conversation aimed at understanding all sides of mental health, addiction recovery, and homelessness. Each interview will include one's personal experiences and insights, or an expert's advice and knowledge within one of these fields. The goal is to promote awareness, guidance, and support for anyone who is affected by these challenges. Thank you all for listening. We are here today for season 2, episode number 5, and this is part 2 of the episode with Clive Agius. Clive is going to be speaking about mental health within youth in the summer school setting. If you haven't listened to part 1 of the episode, which is children with learning development, be sure to check that out. To really bring about kind of some of the aspects of what children are facing today, it's really about more than 5 in 10 children, roughly a little bit over 50%, age 3 to 17 years old, have behavioral disorders, and those 53% have received treatment. So only half of people struggling with a behavior disorder have received treatment, and this is according to the CDC as well. When we're speaking about these challenges, different types of environments, these different types of traumas, any of these types of experiences that could cause behavioral issues, emotional issues, what are really the biggest things that children under the age of 18 face?
That's a really good question, and I'm really happy you brought it up. The challenges children face when they're growing up. I think a lot of pressure is given on education. I feel parents, and especially in our culture, a lot of our parents send their children to private lessons. It's quite a known thing. Like if you speak to other parents, and especially to the school I went to, which is a private school. If you speak to some of the parents, they would say, "Oh, I send my child to private lessons, and I really want them to do well." But the act of pressuring itself would really not be helpful to the child, because you are not sort of seeing their situation. You are not seeing their side. You are sort of forcing your child to get all straight A's, and I mean, that's realistically impossible. Like, I mean, you could do it. It is possible, but it would be very detrimental to your mental health. And so what I think is education is one really tough challenge for children. Another factor which is really affecting children is the company they make. So when I was going to school when I was young, there were certain individuals uh, who are acting naughty, who are sort of trying to act cool, and sort of I knew they were in the company to make with, and I sort of felt I could find better friends, and sort of I feel that as children grow up, they need to realize and they need to filter out what sort of group they want to stay with. And I think the act of filtering out itself is the most important thing, because staying with a really toxic and unhealthy environment is going to stop you from flourishing as a person. I feel that when I stayed with certain individuals who are very toxic and who do not really take into account my situation, sort of I have no say in the sort of relationship. It's a really tough challenge for me. So the social aspect and education, I think, are the two most important things to have like nailed down. So as I said before, education was, the parents were pressuring the child. They were sending them to private lessons like every week, and what a child could do in that situation is to sort of really try to speak with their parents firstly, and try to recognize that they are human. They cannot, um, they can sort of keep up to a level, but if it's too pressuring, they need hobbies as well. most important thing to have is hobbies and like a passion to pursue. And I feel that a lot of children really focus on education because they are forced to by their parents. And don't get me wrong, I mean that my parents want me to get a good education as well, but at the end of the day, you want to do something you really love doing. I think that's the beauty of life. And it's even more nice to see it in children with learning disabilities when they do something they love. I think that's very beautiful.
I completely agree. And I think that's definitely something that you've been able to see throughout your work so far. And,
Yes.
within the work that you've done within the summer school setting, can you speak about how can summer school affect a child's mental health and kind of what role can that play within a child's development?
So the summer school, I really felt that it could really change a lot, like very drastically, because the winter time it focuses more on academics, like trying to get good in maths or like getting good in English. So yeah, the children are exposed to a different environment now in the summer. They are given sort of activities, very fun activities which they could engage in. They could collaborate with one another. They could learn how to sort of um, the children would learn to negotiate, you could say, with each other, and they could learn how to interact with each other, because I feel that winter school in winter doesn't really address this topic. It gets very overlooked because there's a really sole focus on maths, English. In our country, we have Maltese as a language, and there isn't this focus on interaction and activities. It's quite sad because I think it's the most fundamental. I think it should be all year round. Like it shouldn't be only in summer, which is it's stupid only having it in winter. It should be implemented in in each sort of period, you could say. In the summer, I really felt that what really changed from the winter period to the summer, I feel that I got really close to one of the students. It's one of them I had mentioned her in part one of the podcast episode. She has right hemiplegia, which makes her have learning disabilities, and since she has right hemiplegia, she cannot use the left side of her body, so it affects the right hemisphere of the brain. But so it's basic biology. Right hemisphere affects the left side of the body, and the left hemisphere affects the right side. And I felt I really got close with this person, and at the end, like we had traded gifts, and I had given her a card to show my appreciation for her, and sort of there is this more deep connection and deep relationship with the child. Sort of you can be very warming and comforting, and that's what I really felt. Sort of, and I don't really think the in the winter time, school time, anyway, they provide that type of support, because I feel it's mostly just trying to get straight A's, which is stupid. It's very stupid. So that's what I want to say on the subject, and I'm really happy you brought it up.
I love the points that you made and the role of a teacher can play such a impact within a child's development and mental health. What impact have you seen within a teacher's behavior with a child and how that can play a role within a child's mental health?
You mentioned the teacher is really important. As the child grows up, every grade they are exposed to a different teacher in our education system. I don't know how it is in America. So the connection obviously fades away each year because because you are exposed to a different teacher during the winter time. What the teacher could do, and the teacher's role is really important. I feel that what they could provide is a lot of support from their side, not academic support, just moral support, because I feel that they really need it. It's very hard for them. Resilience, the children's level of resilience, I think, is quite low at their age. I think children find it really difficult to go through challenges at a very young age. And I think a teacher or a mentor could really help them get where they want to get. Imagine going for piano lessons or going for guitar lessons without a teacher and just like learning it on the internet. I know some adults who do it, but I don't think I don't think it's feasible for a child to do it, because I think moral support is one of the most important things that a teacher could provide for their students.
It's definitely something so vital that teachers play within that role. And you spoke a little bit about how the opportunity to have summer school was, so vital. And you were saying the differences between summer and winter and the roles there. What is one improvement that can be made within the summer school setting that maybe would impact child development or a child's mental health in a positive light?
I'm really happy you brought up this question, because I think there's definitely room for improvement. And even in summer school, there's vast room for improvement. Even though we criticize a lot the winter time for like being too academic, I think the summertime still needs to be addressed. What can be improved, in my opinion, from working there last year now. It's been a year. I really can't believe it. What I really feel that could be improved in the summertime is resources wise. Our summer school was really struggling to have resources for the students, so we were lacking certain resources. Like we couldn't provide them with certain crafts. We couldn't provide them with certain things for an activity which we were hosting, you could say, which were like hosting for them with the play workers. So I was a child support worker and there was a play worker, and we were planning activities, and we lacked the resources. That's quite sad, because then the children would end up getting very bored in the classroom. And at Malta, it gets very hot during the summer, and this hotness really affects how you feel, how you act. And I can see it in myself as well. When it gets really hot, it really changes one's mood. And what what as well can be improved as well is sort of having a cool environment. I mean, this might be sort of secondary to you or secondary to other people listening to this podcast, but these are very subtle things that could really change how students and their ways of functioning, because a student would function differently if they are in a cool environment rather than a hot environment. And that's that's very subtle, because you wouldn't even sort of take notice of it if you didn't take it into account. So that's one factor which I want to address. And I had mentioned the factor of resources and the sort of environment. Is it cold? Is it hot? That might be secondary, but I would still like to address it. I feel that the people working there, me personally, I'm not a professional social worker. I have not graduated yet, but I still was hired. But some of the people working there weren't they didn't have enough knowledge on children and how they could provide them with this healthy environment. I feel that some of them were just hired for the sake of it, and it's quite sad because we wouldn't be on the same level. I couldn't, if I were to provide a lot of support for a child, then it has to be sort of coming from the other teachers as well, because I cannot be doing all the work and then the other teachers wouldn't sort of be reciprocal about it. It has to be sort of, the whole dynamic needs to work together. We need to work as a team at the end of the day. And so that's what really peaked. The the teachers working there weren't really adequate enough, some of them. I wouldn't say most of them, but some of them weren't. I felt that they weren't really knowledgeable about how to take care of children, how to provide them with activities, how to the basics. They couldn't provide them with the basics. And I feel Maltese culture is, this is very known in Maltese culture, that a lot of people get hired because sort of there is a reputation, they know people, and so they get hired easily, which is quite sad because I mean, if you have studied for 5 long years and someone else takes your job who doesn't know anything, it's very sad because you are in a position where you know a lot about children, and you really have a passion for it, but then there comes someone who screws up the system, we can say, and gets the job. So those are the factors that could be improved.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Clive. And I think, this last question that I like to ask my guests, I think fully encompasses a lot of what we've talked about. We've talked about some issues within the fields, we've talked about some improvements to be made. And it would be a hypothetical one in that you were given a large sum of money, say $1 billion. If you were given this opportunity, where would you allocate these resources to help make an improvement within the mental health field?
I think that's a very nice question to ask at the end of your podcast. I am honestly thinking of how to spend it wisely, because I want to massively improve the situation of the children, and I want them to have a better upbringing, be stimulated to a better environment. But I think at the end of the day, I think the mentality needs to change of our culture, because I feel that we're very behind, and sort of I don't think money or like materialistic objects could change it. But if I were to take on your hypothetical scenario, we need a lot of more therapists. We need a lot of more play therapists, definitely, because the public the public hospital, I mean, it's free for every Maltese citizen, and I think also even for foreigners as well. And the waiting time to get an appointment there is insane. Like you have to wait like 5 months for an appointment. With the care there is quite lacking. So if there is an adolescent suffering from anxiety and they wish to see someone for help, for professional help, they have to wait 5 months for an appointment, and then sort of they come back to this therapeutic setting, and then they would forget what they want to say, sort of. And having this public service of therapy, I think it's really helpful, because therapy is helpful for everyone, and especially for those who are suffering from a mental disorder. So I would improve the therapy in Malta and try to make it accessible and free here with the money that we have, and give more funds to that area. And what also can be improved, I think, is maybe the technology that we employ, because I feel at Malta is very behind technology wise. I feel that maybe we don't have the latest sort of therapy. We are always like 2 steps behind others, and sort of if we had that money, then we could employ new therapeutic methods. We could sort of invest in other types of innovations, different types of I'm gonna say therapies again because I feel that therapies are the most important to have. So yeah, the $1 billion question. I'm really happy that you asked it. I haven't listened to your podcast. I am very sorry because I have exams right now, and I didn't know you were going to ask this question, so I was very surprised. And I am extremely happy you asked this because yeah, it got me thinking a lot, and it got me thinking of how Malta really needs to improve its mental health situation and try to get more therapists and provide more support to adolescents, to children, to everyone, to even to the elderly. I feel because the elderly they can get easily isolated and they would get very lonely at times. So therapy would be very beneficial for them as well. So yeah, thank you, Brandon. Thank you for this asking this hypothetical scenario because I'm really happy that you asked it.
Thank you, Clive. I really appreciate it for answering that and for this episode. It's been a pleasure having you on, and you were the 5th episode of season 2 of the Mental Insights podcast. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out to share your knowledge thus far as you are still educating yourself within a university, and there will be more to come of sharing your own knowledge with my audience and really taking that next step to as you're saying is improving the field and trying to help as many people as we can. So I just love to thank you all for listening to this episode number 5, season 2 of the Mental Insights podcast. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Clive, for being here.
Thank you so much, Brendan. It was really nice to have this interview.
Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Mental Insights podcast. Make sure to reach out to today's guest or myself if you need any advice, guidance, or support in your life today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast so we know what you thought of this episode. I look forward to being in touch with you all in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful day.